Okay, so here's how the proxyquire works. I'm in this project called proxyquire. I'm going to first initialize the project with npm init. I get the package.json, and then I'm going to import a node module. I'm going to import the UUID, which creates random user IDs. And then I'm going to create a file called lib.js. In this file, I'm going to require this module. So and the way that it works is that it makes some methods available to us, like the uuid.v4, which creates random user IDs. Let's console log this to see what we get. I'm going to run this. And every time I run this function, I get a random user ID. Now I'm going to create a function, a very simple function, and export it. I'm going to say function get ID, and it will just return this ID. Pretty simple stuff. I'm going to create my app file, and then I'm going to import the library. So I'm going to say const, let's say get ID require, and we have our lib file, and then I can use this. Let me rename this and console log. Let us see this app in action. So we import the library, which uses the package called UUID, and then we get back the same result. Now this is our application, but let's create a test. So I'm going to create a file called app.test.js, and I want to test this functionality here, this function. But so get ID require lib, exactly the same things here. I'm going to log twice. So node app.test, exactly the same thing, random numbers, random IDs. But now let's say that in one of my tests, I want to override this module, this module. I really like this module working as it is in production, but I want to override this module in some way so that I can test it with some custom value. For example, I want to get the same user ID every single time I call it so that I can run some tests. So let's say that I want this value to always be returned, or maybe same value all the time. Now this is where proxyquire comes into play, and instead of using the require, I'm going to use proxyquire. So I have first to install it. So proxyquire-d. I have my proxyquire here, and now I'm going to comment this and instead use the proxyquire. So I'm going to change this in a bit. Proxyquire equals require proxyquire, and now instead of require, I'm going to use this method here. And what this does is that it enables me to load this library, and I can override a module that this library is using. For example, the UUID. So I can say UUID, and then I pass just an empty object here. Now, bear with me for now, as this is going to give us exactly the same result as before, because we haven't replaced or overridden any method of this module. So if I run my tests, I'm going to see exactly the same behavior, random numbers every time. Now, if I want to override this UUID module with something that I can use in my tests, I can go inside here and I can say, hey, from this module, I want you to take the v4 method, and I want you to replace it, to override it with this function. And this function will return the string that I want. Let me move this down. So now proxyquire will load this module. It will use all the methods and properties available as is, without changing on or touching anything. But when we are going to use the v4 method of this module, instead of using the original v4 method in the module, it will use this function. So let's run our tests to see what's happening. You can see that every time I run the tests, instead of a random UUID, I get to use this mock function, you might say, which returns the value that I want. I might want to use this because even though v4 is the actual method that I will be using in production, in my tests I want to know the value that is returned in order to test whether I got the user ID and I can load it in a database or store it in a database or use it in any other way. So this gives me the ability to override any library or any npm module I want, and override only the selected properties or methods. So whenever you are using npm modules in your tests, you can use proxyquire and override some of the functionality of these modules, which is actually helpful, as you can see. I hope this helps you, and thank you for watching.